Alright guys, so with continuing on doing videos that are a little outside of the norm when it comes to this channel, today I wanted to talk about basically what songs and what genres of music that I use to test headphones and earbuds. I get asked this question all the time in videos, and I do use some of the gold standards that a lot of other people use when it comes to showcasing headphones. And I know that these are the gold standards because I see them at all of these different audio shows that I go to. Kren even made a video on some of the music that he uses and talked about some of these songs as well. Now, first off, I do want to say that there's not really one true genre to test any headphone. If you only listen to one genre, it does make it a little bit easier to find a pair of headphones because there's many different headphones out there that's just good for specific genres. But personally, I listen to everything. I basically have been this way from the time that I've started listening to music. And for one, I feel like if you stick to one genre, you're kind of limiting yourself. You're going to get really bored, and I think you kind of just miss out on some of the amazing shit that's out there. Now, I personally grew up on a lot of Michael Jackson's music and a lot of the pop stuff from the 80s. The 90s are still my personal favorite if I had to pick an era of music. The grunge era is always going to be my favorite because it just produced albums like Bush's 16 Stone, Pearl Jam's Verses, Soundgarden's Down on the Upside, although I know that's not like their most popular album, but from a production value standpoint, that one is really good to check out. Also, Nirvana's Unplugged album, you have Green Day's Dookie, Silverchair's Frog Stomp. I mean, really, I could just kind of go on all day listing different albums from the 90s. Now, when it comes to hip hop, the 90s had some of my personal favorites like Outkast, Bone Thugs and Harmony, there's Tupac, there's Biggie, and then the holy grail as far as hip hop albums for me is Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style album. Now, it may just be that it takes me back to a time that was much simpler in my life, and just, I love that album, like top to bottom. It's fantastic. You can test out any of the tracks on that album with headphones, and you'll see why it kind of represents that era so well. And in my personal opinion, I feel like that's like Dr. Dre's prime when it comes to some of the beats that he's made. Again, that's just my opinion. Even with saying all this, I never listened to music from one specific era. I think that people are always making amazing stuff. There's a lot of new incredible bands, a lot of new incredible songs. So if you're constantly checking out new artists, it's really hard to just get bored with music in general. So I never understand whenever people say that I only listen to music from a certain decade, like the 80s or the 70s or whatever. I feel like they're really missing out on a lot of stuff that's just coming out today. Now, let me explain some of the different genres that I use. Now, I do love chaotic genres. I do like heavy music, so I listen to a lot of stuff like Dance Gavin Dance, Spirit Box, Idola, Beartooth, The Amity Affliction, All Shall Perish is another one that's really heavy if you want something to just make you want to punch a wall. I feel like those genres really push headphones because headphones have to be able to handle chaotic stuff going on, and this is where a lot of headphones kind of fall flat. This is where things start to get mushy if it's not a headphone that can handle everything and separate everything very well. So this is a really good genre to test out the technicality of headphones. Now, when it comes to pop and hip hop, this is usually what you see is used to showcase headphones because these genres are just much more simpler. And in most cases, they have higher production value. I am going to say like the new Doja Cat song, I think it's called Jealous Type. This has an awesome like 80s vibe to it. It just sounds really good in headphones if you have the right one to test these out. I'm also going to say the Carly Rae Jepsen album Dedicated. This one's a classic in my opinion. And again, it has a lot of the 80s vibes to it. Now, another album, at least from a hip hop side, if you listen to Outkast's Stankonia, the production value is really high on that one, even though it's not necessarily their best album. But when it comes to instruments and how everything's produced, it sounds really good in headphones. I'm also going to say that Travis Scott's Astro World is a really good album to check out. Kendrick Lamar's album Damn has some really good production value on it. And pretty much anything that Pharrell produces, because he uses like a really good mixture of synthesized, like keyboards and different beats that are produced in electronic equipment, and also like natural instruments. It's a good blend of everything, and I feel like that's a really good representation of what you can get out of your headphones as well. There's also one hip hop era that I kind of avoid. I don't know the exact time frame, but there was an era where hip hop, and this is more recently, decided to just make it sound like bass was distorted. This to me sounded awful, and I think this was a very stupid idea, but for some reason it caught on, and I just never got into that, and I feel like it just made music sound awful. So there is certain eras I don't necessarily like to go to. Now, when it comes to country, this is basically turned into pop music, but with acoustic and some electric guitars on top of it. Country is very pop now, so it's not, it's kind of hard to separate country and pop as much as it used to be, again, from like eras like the 90s, maybe like early 2000s. Now, I am going to say scores from soundtracks are also really good to test out headphones. It's kind of like the classical music of today, but scores are kind of made to invoke feeling. So there's a lot of different layers in soundtracks and scores to movies. And I personally think if you check out the score to Interstellar, there's some really good tracks on that album. It shows you how things can be complex, but things can also be really powerful at the same time as being simple. Again, it's hard to explain, but Interstellar is just one of my personal favorites that I like to go to. So now let's talk about those classic songs that I think, again, get overly used when it comes to showcasing headphones. And there's a reason that they do. First, I'm going to say that the Eagles' Hotel California, that's from the Hell Freezes Over album, it is one of those recordings that makes you feel like you are in that arena, listening to that band live. It just, the way that it starts, it's very just boomy when it comes to the drums. The acoustic guitars come in and they just have this like very clean sound to them. So the contrast of the boomy drums and then that clean acoustic guitar, and then when his vocals come in and the crowd, whoever mixed this did just a fantastic job with. Now next, although pretty much any Michael Jackson song from the 80s could be used, especially when it comes to production value. And again, anything that Quincy Jones touched when it came to Michael Jackson's albums, that's just the best era of him, in my opinion. But I am going to say that Billie Jean seems to be the song that gets used the most. And again, I think it's kind of because it fits that same criteria that I said with Eagles' Hotel California. It starts off with like a simple beat, and then they start to add layers of synthesizers coming in. And then once his vocals come in, you feel everything kind of build up. So at the end of the day, you hear this masterpiece, but you get to just build it layer by layer. And that one song to me is just, it's always been one that stood out in his catalog. Now, I am going to say the holy grail of songs, if I had to just pick one song that I could only listen to the rest of my life, it would be Phil Collins' In the Air Tonight. Again, it kind of follows that same formula of the slow build-up. It starts just this very simple, little noise that then comes in with his vocals, which does have some type of effect on it. And it's this slow build to what I feel like is one of the just most iconic drum sounds of all time. I think anybody at this point knows that specific sound that I'm talking about. It's just a song I can listen to over and over again. I've never gotten tired of it, and I pretty much have listened to it from the time that it's come out, even to this day, and I'd still just kind of get lost in that song. And it's a perfect song to showcase any kind of headphones. So now you're probably wondering which headphones or earbuds would I choose that I would say have passed all of these tests, like went through all these different genres, and I feel like checks off just all the boxes. Well, if you're looking for true wireless earbuds, I am going to say that the Noble Audio Focus Rex 5 is probably the cream of the crop. It just, from pure audio, that's the best, in my opinion, that you're going to get on a pair of true wireless earbuds. Now, if you're looking for a pair of true wireless earbuds that can sound incredible, but also have some active noise canceling, I would point you in the direction of the Status Pro X. Again, from an audio standpoint, it checks all of those boxes, and noise canceling doesn't just come in and destroy everything. If I were to say a pair of wireless headphones, I would say the Focal Batiste. It's just hard to beat those. Now, if I did have to pick a wired headphone option, I would say that the Sennheiser HD6XX that was released on Massdrop years ago, that headphone specifically to me, I just kept it around for a long time. and it sounded, so good no matter what I threw at it. And I never thought that it was like overly priced. I felt like it was a really good entry level into the audiophile world. And I think it just kind of bypassed a lot of the more expensive headphones that I've tested throughout the years. Now, I'm also going to say, at least from a newer pair of wired headphones, the Meze Audio 105 AERs is fantastic. I think it kind of gets looked over because it's not as well of a known brand compared to like Sennheiser or Audio-Technica or anything like that. And speaking of Audio-Technica, although this is an older headphone, but it's still kind of newer to me. The ATH AD700X that I mentioned in my recent video, that headphone, I am having an incredible time just listening to all genres. That one is checking off all the boxes. And again, like I said in that video, I think you can get it right now for about $140, maybe $150. And that one I think is a hell of a value. But, every headphone and earbud and speaker that I check out, it always allows me to experience all of these different songs that I've heard and listened to throughout the years in a completely different kind of way. And I think this is why it's always important to check out everything that you can, find, a reviewer or somebody that listens to things very similar to you or has similar taste, and then kind of go into that route, because everybody has different tastes. And I know even the products that I normally talk about on the channel, maybe even some of the ones that I mentioned in this video, people immediately think I don't know what I'm talking about because it's something I like and it's something they don't like. And it doesn't really matter. If it's something that you like, go with it. Who cares what anybody else thinks? If it can channel all of these songs and all of these classics and new music and just allow you to experience all of these things the way that you want to, then it's for you, and it doesn't have to be for anybody else. But guys, that wraps up my video and another basically kind of rambling video. But thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.